Tonight, grass fire concerns. 11 fires break out near Dawson Creek in the last week. By-election results. It's a tie in Tumbler Ridge. And avalanche concerns. With the warm weather comes new warnings. Good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with a number of grass fires over the past 3 days. 3 in Dawson Creek, the other just north of Fort St. John. A fire breaking out this morning near the gun range near Rolla. Crews rushed to the scene after a brush pile burned out of control. On Friday night, crews in Dawson Creek were called to two separate grass fires. The first started near the dangerous goods roads. Someone was burning a brush pile that became out of control due to the wind. Then just a half hour later, another blaze occurring on 8th Street just north of town. That fire grew to half a hectare in size before crews got it under control. The third fire also thought to be started by burning brush piles. The BC Wildfire Service was on hand to fight that blaze. And then another fire broke out Saturday north of Fort St. John. It started south of Pineview on 259 Road. The fire grew to 0.2 hectares in size before being brought under control. That fire also thought to be human-caused. In the Dawson Creek area, there have been 11 separate grass fires in the past 7 days alone, all thought to be human-caused. Chief Marcel Capel reminding the public to have proper permits and don't burn during windy conditions. The by-election in Tumbler Ridge this weekend has ended in a tie. Don McPherson and Keith Bertrand both finishing with 108 votes each. Now, with no clear winner, the votes will be recounted. Official results could be released by tomorrow night or Wednesday morning. If the tie remains, the matter will then be referred to a judicial recount to choose a winner. If the two candidates are still tied, names will then be drawn to decide. The by-election was held after former councillor Ken Klikach resigned back on January the 20th. The emergency room at the Chetwynd Hospital was on diversion for 50 hours over a 4-day period. The health authority once again taking to social media to advise residents of the closure. Staffing challenges, closing the ER at 7 Thursday morning. It reopened Friday morning. Northern Health announcing yet another closure then on Saturday morning. The second diversion lasting until 8 a.m. Sunday. It's the first diversion in Chetwynd this month, following one in March, one in February, and 3 in January. While the shortages have slowed, emergency room nurse vacancy rates in the Northeast still sit at 29%, according to Northern Health. People needing life-saving care were being asked to call 911 to be transported to the next closest emergency room that's over an hour away. Construction season is underway across the Peace region. The city of Fort St. John announcing starting today, 89 Avenue will be closed except to local traffic. Construction is beginning on the second phase of the 89 Avenue project. The work is taking place between 81A and 86th Streets. Underground utilities are being replaced along with sidewalks, paving, and street lights. Phase 2 is expected to wrap up by late summer. City officials are asking residents to obey traffic control personnel and to slow down in construction zones. And with warm weather here, it's a great time to get outdoors, but Avalanche Canada is warning backcountry users to be careful. Warmer temperatures and other existing conditions could trigger another avalanche cycle. The avalanche danger rating in the western part of the Peace region is currently listed as considerable. Forecasters say there is potential for destructive slides and people need to keep their guards up. Avalanche Canada says the danger is most prevalent in the alpine areas. It's been 9 years since the province declared a public health emergency related to overdoses and the tainted drug supply. In that time, more than 16,000 British Columbians have died from toxic drugs. Those who've been lost were honored today at the legislature in Victoria, where some speakers say there's been a regression in how we talk about and respond to the crisis. CTV's Anna McMillan reports.
Flags are staked in the soil at the legislature for lives lost to toxic drugs. Fewer people are dying, but there's fear progress is backsliding.
The rhetoric around the toxic drug crisis has become worse. People have become more afraid of harm reduction.
That is a shared sentiment.
The public discourse on this particular issue has sort of gone to the wayside. It's not a priority right now. It's sort of been turned into a crime and disorder thing instead of a health thing on what it actually is.
In February, the BC Coroner's Service announced toxic drug deaths in 2024 dropped 13% compared to the year prior. It's unclear what's driving the trend, as jurisdictions with very different policies are seeing a similar decrease.
We need to look at safe supply of regulated drugs for people so that they are not fatally overdosing by toxic drugs, and we need to have more treatment beds.
An addictions medicine doctor based in Nanaimo says the 9th anniversary of BC's overdose crisis feels different than past years.
We're sensing a lot of complacency from our politicians at best, and at worst we're sensing a lot of resistance to a lot of the evidence-based interventions that keep people alive and safe during this crisis.
Advocates had long called for decriminalization, which the province walked back in part last year. There was extensive backlash about drug use in places like parks and hospitals, so the province recriminalized possession in public.
There's an increasing reliance on emotion and moral panic to base our decisions on, and I think that politicians are preying on that.
Still, this crowd at the legislature holds on to hope.
We're going to have a 10th anniversary next year, I'm pretty sure, but all the people here and the doctors who are, going ahead and doing unsanctioned overdose prevention sites and all the advocates and the meetings we get, we have to have some hope.
Anna McMillan, CTV News, Victoria.
A notorious offender with a history of violence against women in the sex trade in BC has died in Vernon. Curtis Segmoin was found guilty for several violent offenses involving escorts. The 44-year-old was also a suspect in the death of Tracy Genereux, whose remains were found on his family farm in the Shuswap area. The family of the 18-year-old says RCMP alerted them of his death last week. Now, police have not named Segmoin, but they say they responded to the sudden death of a 44-year-old man at the Tiki Motel in Vernon on Thursday. An investigation is underway, but police say no criminality is suspected in his death. A man accused of setting 2 Vancouver police officers on fire has now been charged. And a warning, viewers may find some of the video in this story hard to watch. Surveillance video capturing the moments from Thursday night in the downtown east side of Vancouver. Police were trying to make an arrest for jaywalking when they say the suspect used a flammable substance and set the officers' uniforms on fire. One of the officers was treated by paramedics at the scene while the other was uninjured. Jordan Paul Campbell Mutual has been charged with assaulting and obstructing a police officer. The 40-year-old was wanted on 10 outstanding warrants. The province of Alberta recording 16 new cases of the measles since Friday. 9 of the new cases are in the central zone, while 7 are in the south. And that brings the total number of cases across Alberta to 74. The province says 64 of those cases are past the period of transmissions. The majority of cases remain in children, 18 of which are kids less than 5 years old. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health says these outbreaks are highly preventable. Measles were eradicated in Canada back in 1998. However, low vaccination rates have contributed to the recent outbreaks. And dramatic images are emerging out of southern Alberta after a tornado touched down south of the city of Brooks. The Landspout tornado touched down near Lake Newell on Saturday, about 2.5-hour drive from Calgary. Environment Canada has given the twister a preliminary rating of EF0. That's the lowest on the scale, with wind speeds between 105 and 137 kilometers an hour. It's the first tornado in Canada to be reported this year. No injuries or damage was reported. Well, to the federal election, where the latest polling numbers show the Liberals have opened up a 7-point lead over the Conservatives. A 3-day rolling sample has the Liberals at about 45%. The Conservatives trail in second place at 38% nationally. Liberal leader Mark Carney is the preferred choice to be Prime Minister at 50%. Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre is trailing 16 points behind at 34%. And with just 2 weeks to go until Election Day, many party leaders are in Quebec preparing for the upcoming French debate on Wednesday. They're also fighting over a province that's famous for making or breaking political fortunes. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
In Bombardier's Dorval headquarters, Liberal leader Mark Carney promising a new future for Canada's defence industry.
Today, defence is not only about manpower, it's about brainpower.
Carney promising to create a research bureau focused on digital defence through artificial intelligence and quantum computing, while expanding on his promise to prioritize Canadian defence companies, modernizing procurement through a new centralized agency. Meanwhile, the Liberal leader also condemning members of his own party's war room.
This is totally unacceptable, to be absolutely clear. And I, on behalf of my campaign, I was unaware of this behavior, but on behalf of my campaign, I apologize for it unreservedly.
Carney making the apology after a journalist overheard staffers saying they planted "Stop the Steal" buttons at a right-leaning conference in Ottawa last week. Meanwhile, in Montreal, Conservative tough-on-crime proposals are getting tougher.
They should only come out in a box.
Pierre Poilievre said he would bring back consecutive life sentences for people convicted of multiple murders. The Supreme Court banned the practice in 2022, but Poilievre says he'll use the notwithstanding clause to block any judicial intervention on the basis of charter rights.
We will bring in the biggest crime crackdown in Canadian history to protect the constitutional charter rights of Canadians.
The Bloc pitched their own justice changes, including minimum sentences for crimes committed with a firearm and a registry of criminal organizations, while the NDP narrowed in on nursing.
Our plan is to hire 35,000 new nurses between now and 2030.
Jagmeet Singh calling for provinces to meet patient-to-nurse ratios and promising a $5,000 tax credit for nurses and personal support workers. Singh says he plans to make healthcare a focus for all the leaders, promising to bring it up at the debates this week. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, advanced voting in the federal election begins this week. Polling stations open on Friday and will remain open through the Easter long weekend. The location of advanced polls can be found on the voter information cards mailed out by Elections Canada or through the agency's voter information service. Canadians officially head to the polls on April the 28th. Economists are expecting inflation numbers to be moving in the wrong direction this week. Stats Canada will release the Consumer Price Index numbers tomorrow. Economists are expecting inflation to climb to 2.6% for the month of March. Experts say food pricing are helping to push the overall inflation up, but real estate trends are helping to relieve some of that pressure. Economists say tariffs will have some impact, but Canada's retaliatory measures are being offset by lower commodity prices. The Bank of Canada is set to make its next interest rate decision on Wednesday. As summer inches closer, many Canadians are planning to stay north of the border for their vacation in a bid to avoid the United States. And recent border numbers are already showing a major decline in traffic. Now BC communities are bracing for a spike in tourists. With more, here's CTV's Craig Krause.
Whether it's on the island, the Okanagan, the Kootenays, or up north, BC has plenty to offer. And with summer inching closer, there could be a wave of tourists staying north of the border.
It'll be BC, but just probably to the Okanagan.
Going to Whistler. I heard there's a beach party there.
Local travel plans, something communities and attractions are preparing for.
We see our booking pace a bit ahead of last year, and last year was a good summer.
I'm really expecting it to be really busy this year. You know, we appreciate that.
BC hotels, short-term rentals, and campgrounds already filling up. And for campers, finding that last available spot has become a bit easier.
Select the trail.
Vancouver-based app CampNap is monitoring cancellations.
They'll open up that availability on their website and that alerts your app.
So what'll happen is when someone cancels, then the status of the campsite changes from unavailable to available.
And this year, with growing demand, the race is on.
I would get on it right now, yes.
And to maintain the health of tourism in the province, Destination BC announced it's investing.
It's nearly $4.2 million in continued cooperative marketing funding that supports over 150 communities and really 13 provincial tourism sectors.
Destination BC is also reporting a year-over-year spike in Americans vacationing in the province this summer. No surprise for many Canadians.
Canada has a lot to offer, so we're okay. We're okay.
Craig Krause, CTV News, Vancouver.
Vista Radio launching 3 new stations across the Peace region today. The company saying it marks a powerful new era for radio in Northeast BC. 98.5 GO FM and 101.5 The Goat will serve Fort St. John, while Pure Country in Dawson Creek is being rebranded to the Ranch 890 AM. The new stations are part of Vista's radio expansion. The company's now Canada's second largest commercial radio broadcaster. It comes after the sale of 21 radio stations from Bell Media in British Columbia. We should mention that Bell Media is the parent company of CJDC-TV News. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with a look at weather.